Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to jump into the player's handbook. We're going to go to the first level magic user spells, and we're going to look at our good friend Spider Climb. Spider Climb, Spider Climb. It is a level 1 spell, range is touch, 1 round plus 1 round per level. The creature touched is the area of effect. Verbal, somatic, and material components, 1 segment casting time, and no saving throw. A spider climb spell enables the recipient to climb and travel upon vertical surfaces, just as a giant spider is able to do, at 3-inch movement rate, or even hang upside down from ceilings. Note that the affected creature must have bare hands and feet in order to climb in this manner. During the course of the spell, the recipient cannot handle objects which weigh less than 50 gold pieces, which is 5 pounds, for such objects will stick to the creature's hands or feet, so a magic user will find it virtually impossible to cast spells if under a spider climb dweomer. The material component of the spell is a drop of bitumen and a live spider, both of which must be eaten by the spell recipient. Well, first things first, I'll go in a little bit. I don't make my people eat live spiders. Enough people have creepy crawly feelings about spiders that I took that part out. One of the physically biggest, tallest players that I gamed with back in the day had a thing about spiders. He hated them. He'd run from them literally, and I'd just walk over and kill them. But he hated spiders. So I would never, of course, make his character eat a live spider. So I took that out, and we left the rest of the spell sort of intact in that you have to have bare feet and hands. I kind of like that. We did take out the whole can't handle things under 50 pounds, because as you're climbing on the surface, it occurred to me that some parts of the wall, if it's a natural cliff or just a crumbling wall, some parts are going to come off and coat your hands. And if nothing else, dirt and dust are going to coat your fingers and your feet. So how the heck can you still spider climb if you have chunks of rock stuck to your hands? So this description of the spell didn't make a ton of sense to me for that reason. So we took that out. We make it that like a spider, the recipient of the spider climb spell can use the ability to climb or not. And in other words, they can kind of retract their little microscopic attachers that let them cling to the wall and drop whatever item that might have been stuck to their hand. So I don't make it an all or nothing kind of thing, and it's never been an issue with player characters climbing up on a wall and then throwing a spell. Usually, because the duration is so short, first level, you're only getting this for 2 rounds. And even at 6th level, you're only getting it for 7 rounds. Casting a spell really hasn't been much of an issue. And of course, if you can cast a spell that only has a verbal component, then there's no reason at all that you couldn't cast that particular spell, or verbal and somatic for that matter. As long as it doesn't have a material component, you can still cast the spell. This was just a way, I think, to kind of try to limit player characters in the early days of the game so that they weren't climbing up to the top of the wall, completely out of reach, and then lobbing down spells that did damage onto the hapless monsters below. And I really feel that was what this part of the rule about the 5 pound or less objects being handled really was in there to combat. And I get that, but I also get that it's my game, my table, etc., etc. There are things about it that I'm going to go ahead and say, well, no, this doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I'm going to go ahead and change that. And I've seen no ill effects. We changed this early in days, probably within the first year, certainly within the first 2 years of my playing D&D, which means we changed this in the very early 80s. And I've used this spell since then, and it's come up I don't know how many times at my table, and I've cast it as a player I don't know how many times, or as a dungeon master with NPCs, and I've never had an issue by pulling that rule out. But a really useful spell, one that I like to get as a brand new magic user. 2 rounds of climbing a wall can end up being very helpful. You've got that 40-foot castle wall that needs to be climbed over for reasons in the story. You cast the spider climb on yourself, and up the wall you go. And now you're on top of the wall, and if you are high enough level, you might be able to actually climb down the other side, but if not, you can drape a rope down and climb down that way. The only bad news is, of course, you're doing it barefoot and barehanded, but you tie your shoes together and sling them over your shoulder, and up you go. So I like this spell. I like it a lot. I really get excited when one of my low-level MUs get it, and even at higher levels, my MUs do take it because it's a useful spell in that I can touch somebody else and give them the spider climbing ability. It doesn't have to be me. It's a touch spell, not self only, which means that I can, another fighter in the party, for instance, who can't get up the wall for whatever reason, I can go ahead and give him the spider climb, and he can climb up the wall very quickly. Interestingly, it doesn't say how much weight you can bear when you spider climb. Can you put somebody on your back and climb up the wall? And to that end, I have always allowed it to be if the player doing the climbing would be strong enough to give the individual a piggyback ride for any length of time, then yes, I'll allow them to go up the wall on the person's back. But if it's a smaller person and they're being asked to carry a bigger person and they couldn't ordinarily be expected to do a piggyback for more than, a couple of seconds, then no, I'm not going to allow that. In that case, you cast the spell on the fighter, the magic user is the one riding on piggyback, and up they go. So a lot of different ways to use the spell. That's one of the reasons I like it. I wish the duration was a little longer. I would love that the 1 round plus 1 per level was something like 4 rounds plus 1 per level. And I realize, again, I can change that at my table, but that's something I've just chosen not to do. Again, it doesn't come up often enough for that to be a real issue. But if a player came to me and say, hey, I want to do improved spider climb, maybe we'd look at it and maybe we'd make it a 2nd or 3rd level spell, and then I'd give them additional time on it. But that's all I've got to say today on the excellent magic user spell Spider Climb. Let me know what you think, what your experiences with the spell have been. Is it a great spell? Is it a terrible spell? Do players take too much advantage of it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And also, please like and subscribe. Take a look at the Patreon. Help me out there. And I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching page 121, and I'll see you next time.